Once upon a time. Whenever you see the words once upon a time, you know that what follows is going to be a fairy tale. And whenever you see the words on the big screen, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, you know that what follows is going to be a Star Wars movie. Thank you, my fellow nerds. Thank you. And whenever you hear the words, we live in times of great change, you know that the person standing in front of you is a management consultant. Because a management consultant literally cannot open its mouth without saying the words, we live in times of great change. But what kind of change are we actually talking about? Especially, what kind of change are we talking about in the business world? Well, for starters, the average lifespan of a company has gone down significantly, from roughly 70 years back in the 20s to approximately 20 years nowadays. So, from the point of time a company is born until it reaches its maximum, and then until it dies out. Nowadays, on average, it's just 20 years. And then take into account bankruptcies. Top 7 of top 10 bankruptcies in history have happened just in the last 15 years. So all of human history, just 3. Last 15 years, 7 of them. So as you can see, things are getting more complicated and more complex at the same time. And then take 2 lists, 2 snapshots. 1,000 biggest companies in the US 10 years ago and 1,000 biggest companies in the US nowadays. And you compare the 2 lists. You will see that 70% of companies from the original list are not on the list right now. It doesn't mean that all of them have gone bankrupt. Some of them have gone bankrupt, some of them have gone through mergers and acquisitions, some of them still exist and are in business, but are just not that big and that relevant anymore. But the rate of change, churn, has been 70% within just 10 years. And then if you want this summed up, like, can you give me a single photo where I can see the rate of change nowadays? Well, this is it. It's the same sports, Formula One. It's the same team, Ferrari. It's the same part of the car, the steering wheel. The only difference is roughly 70 years between 2 photos. The one on the left looks like it's a kid toy. Looks like my 2-year-old Katarina can drive it. But the one on the right looks like it came straight out of the newest James Bond movie. And the supervillain is asking, like, if I press this button, will it fire rockets or lasers, or will it turn my car into a submarine? The easy thing to say would be that technology has changed both the internal environment, our jobs, and the external business environment. But that's an obvious one. You can easily see that. The real conclusion here, it's not what has changed, but what hasn't changed. And what hasn't changed isn't even in this picture. What hasn't changed is the poor old driver. It's the same person that used to drive this one. The human beings haven't evolved because technology has evolved. We didn't grow an extra pair of hands. We didn't get supervision like Cyclops. It's the same person who has to drive the one on the left and the one on the right. So how do we do it? Well, if you're into HR, you know that the answer is lifelong learning. Why? Well, rainbows and unicorns, because people are our most valuable asset. And yes, as much as we like to make fun about HR people, this is exactly true. However, there's just one tiny caveat about it, and that's that we do not put our money where our mouths are. We do not invest into people. We often and usually invest in technology. That means, yes, our jobs and our environment are getting more complicated and more complex and faster than ever. We know that we need to upgrade and update, but we're telling you, we are not going to invest in you, we are going to use more money for technology. Which means that every single decade after 70s, companies have just been paying lip service to the education and training of their people. But money has been going elsewhere. So every decade since the 70s, the amount of days, the number of days, and the amount of money we are investing in in the training of our people is going significantly down. And you all know this guy. He gave you plenty of trouble in your biology classes back in the day. And you probably forgot a lot of the things he said, but for sure you do remember one thing he said, and that it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the biggest, nor the fastest, nor the best looking, nor whatever, but the ones that are most responsive to change. What does that mean? When external change happens, our ability to adapt to the change is what's going to keep us either alive or in business. So take, for example, Thomas Cook, the first and the largest travel agent in the world. And then one day, back in 2019, Thomas Cook went bankrupt. How on earth was that possible? Thomas Cook thought, because of all these numbers, that Darwinism does not apply to it. So you're the biggest, you're the oldest, you have tons of employees, you have you're earning tons of money, so Darwin doesn't apply to you. Well, guess what? You continued using an analog business model in today's digital world. What does it mean? Well, the travel bundle you were selling is now unbundled. It's not a package any longer. You can buy every little thing from that bundle on your own via internet without the need for Thomas Cook. There's a famous part in a novel by Ernest Hemingway where two friends meet. And one is asking the other, "How are you doing, my friend? I haven't seen you in a long time." And the guy responds, "Not good, my man, not good." "Why? What's wrong?" "I went bankrupt." "How on earth did you go bankrupt?" "Well, in two ways. First, gradually, and then suddenly." Most of these companies here, and a lot of other companies, have gone bankrupt in two ways. First, gradually, and then suddenly. But what does it mean? It means that people preferences, psychological trends, political situation, economic trends, things are changing on a day-to-day basis, slowly. And yes, we might not notice them, and we might not adapt. But over bigger periods of time, these small changes accumulate. And then one day, it looks like it happened suddenly, and we went bankrupt overnight. In fact, we were getting bankrupt for at least years or sometimes decades. It's just that we weren't aware of it. But so far, this has just been plain old Darwin. The title said, Navigating Change in the Age of Digital Darwinism. So what's Digital Darwin? Digital Darwinism is the time we are in right now. The time where the ability of a lot or even most organizations to adapt and change is not as big as the rate of change in the environment. So it's not the question of are you changing as an individual or as an organization. You are doing your best. The real question is, are you changing at least as fast as the environment around you? Because if the internal rate of change is lower than the external rate of change, that organization will be in big trouble very, very soon. So take, for example, Forever 21, American version of Zara, H&M. It used to be the fastest fast fashion company in the world. And then one day, back in 2019, it went bankrupt. I was shocked. Like, how on earth can the fastest fast fashion company go bankrupt? It's not like they're an analog dinosaur. No, they're a fast digital company that is actually changing. And it's the fastest one in the industry. So I did a lot of research, and it turns out that the fast fashion industry is at least 30 years old concept, which means Zara, H&M, Uniqlo, Gap, the business model is at least 3 decades old. It doesn't mean that it's not working. It is working, but there are newer and faster players coming around. The ones you know for sure is ultra fast fashion, direct to consumer, which means that these companies do not have physical stores. Everything is done on the website and then just shipped to you. If you're on Instagram or on TikTok, then for sure you know Fashion Nova, ASOS, Boohoo, and other companies. But this business model is also a decade old. And what I didn't know is that there is a new business model. A new business model called real-time fashion. And the pioneer of this model is Chinese Shein. Shein. She is in. She is hot. She is in fashion. This one also doesn't have physical shops, but this one doesn't have factories. So the company does not have factories, and the company does not have shops. The only thing they have is their algorithm. And they are called, the algorithm is called the TikTok of e-commerce, which means and then who produces and how do they produce? Well, if you own a factory in China, you just get in touch with Shein and say, I would like to work with you. What do I need to do? And the only thing you need to do is to install their operating system, install their platform, and the algorithm takes care of everything else. So the question now that we know what happens in the era of digital Darwinism is how do we actually future-proof our organizations? What do we need to do? Well, instead of giving you a simple answer, I'm going to tell you a short story, which is not a made-up story. It's a real-world scientific experiment. There's a national park on the border between Germany and Czech Republic called Šumava. Or, to be precise, it's on the border what used to be West Germany and what used to be Czechoslovakia. Why am I telling you this? Well, because straight through this national park, the Iron Curtain was built back in the day. So one part of the national park remained in West Germany, and the other part of the national park remained in Czechoslovakia. So imagine you were Bambi waking up early in the morning with your mom and wanting to take a hike from Czechoslovakia to Germany, West Germany. You go into West Germany, spend a couple of hours there, and want to return. In the meantime, some bad people have built an Iron Curtain. And no, you cannot longer pass. You can never, ever cross back into Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, and see your mom. And the situation lasted until 1989, at the fall of the Berlin Wall. And then next year, in 1990, the Iron Curtain was demolished completely. Then the Czechoslovakia split into Czech Republic and Slovakia. Czech Republic became a part of EU, became a part of Schengen. And now, not only there is no Iron Curtain in Šumava, there is absolutely no border. You do not have a clue, once you're in Šumava, when are you in Czech Republic and when are you in Germany. There is no line to cross. Unless you have a GPS, you never know what country are you in. So the scientists from a university in Czech Republic decided to do a study. They've put GPS tracking locators around necks of 300 red deer that live in this national park. And they tracked their behavior for many years. They wanted to find out their movement behaviors, their mating rituals, and so on, feeding patterns. So after a couple of years, they take GPS locators from their neck, feed the data into a big data algorithm. Big data algorithm crunches the numbers, and it gives you results. The one result, the one insight no one was prepared for, that even now, almost 30 years after the destruction of the Iron Curtain, red deer do not cross the former line where the Iron Curtain was. There is no line. They haven't seen the line. They don't know where the line is, but they never cross it. Like, they move from Czech Republic, and then at one point in time, they just make a U-turn and go back. The same thing happens in Germany. The question was why? Well, they obviously remember how it was. They cannot remember because a typical red deer can live up to maximum of 15 years. 15. Which means if they took part in the experiment, they were not alive at the time of the Iron Curtain. If they were alive and they were able to see the Iron Curtain, they died long time ago and they didn't take part in the scientific experiment. So how do they know? Well, then there was a new experiment, and it showed that your mother, Bambi's mother, is actually telling you where to go and where not to go. But when Bambi asks, "Mom, why aren't we crossing this line?" Mom says, "Well, because we don't." "But why, Mom?" "Because I said so." "But why, Mom?" Why? And after 1,000 whys, the only thing a mom can say is that we have always done it this way. Ever since I was here, this is the way how we do things. Why? I don't know. But it's the way we do things around here. So companies nowadays have the latest internet-enabled digital business processes. They have mid-20th century management processes, but all of this is built on top of, at best, late 19th century management principles. So until we change the underlying management principles, we cannot move forward when it comes to our companies. So what is then the future of management? Well, the future of management is the so-called three-box solution. Box number one is present, and we need to actively manage the present. And that's what most of the companies are actually great at, high efficiency. Box number two, what we usually do not do, like those red deer, is selectively forget the past. Each day, test things that we believe are true, but are actually not true and haven't been true in a long time. And box number three is create the future. Invent, create new sources of income, new sources of revenue, and a new business model. And you cannot pick, I will do 1 and 2 and then not 3. As an organization, we need both to manage the present, selectively forget the past, and create the future in order to be relevant and in order to effectively navigate the changing environment in the age of digital Darwinism. So my final message to you, both in life and in business, is remember those red deer in Czech Republic. My message to you is try not to behave like those red deer. Try to dare, try to experiment, try to do new things, and dare to cross that line, which is imaginary and often only in your head. Thank you very much. Thank you.